Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time zone you're in. Welcome back to Sip and Talk.
Yeah, welcome back, everyone. We have got a seriously packed show for you today.
We really do. But before we get into all the crazy data, I conceptually need to hand you this massive iced Americano I just walked in with.
Oh, nice. Thank you. Although, I have to ask, what's the occasion?
Well, I am officially calling it the inflation special.
The inflation special? Is that like a actual new menu item or?
I mean, it might as well be. Yeah. So last year, this exact same coffee was $5. Today, $7.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that hurts.
Right, $7. I literally asked the barista, did that extra $2 go straight to a drone factory in some geopolitical hotspot?
That is, well, it's pretty dark humor, but honestly, it's mathematically accurate right now.
Seriously.
Yeah.
And our studio coffee machine is still totally broken, so I really didn't have a choice.
Yeah, we definitely need to get someone to fix that thing. But, that inflation speed is basically everyone's biggest fear at the moment.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, you look around the Silicon Valley tech scene here, and everyone is just, obsessing over chasing the next AI unicorn. They're completely in this bubble.
Totally insulated.
Exactly. But for all our Sip and Talkers tuning in today, I just pulled up the Bloomberg terminal before we started recording, and the macroeconomic reality is, well, it's rough.
Tell me about it.
Energy prices and Red Sea shipping costs are just delivering this absolute gut punch to household budgets. We have officially moved from caring about supply chains to completely obsessing over defense chains.
Which brings us directly to the global chessboard for March 2026. Because if you want to understand why your coffee, your flight, or your groceries are spiking, you really have to look at the U.S.-Iran conflict.
Right.
We are on day 26 of this escalation. And it is sending massive shockwaves through the global energy markets.
Yeah.
Trump recently proposed a 15-point peace plan trying to de-escalate things.
Yeah, and Tehran categorically rejected that plan. I mean, they straight up called it illogical.
Wow, just flat out rejected it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they countered with this list of demands that basically stalled the entire diplomatic process. They're demanding U.S. base closures all across the region.
Which is a huge ask.
Huge. Plus massive financial reparations and, this is the crazy part, complete sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz.
Wait, complete sovereignty?
Yeah. They actually proposed levying a $2 million toll per ship passing through that specific waterway.
$2 million per ship. I mean, for anyone wondering why one single waterway matters to your wallet, about 20% of the world's total oil consumption flows through the Strait of Hormuz.
Exactly.
So slapping a $2 million toll on every single tanker essentially weaponizes the world's most critical energy choke point.
And the military response to that threat has been, frankly, rapid. The U.S. deployed 3,000 troops from the 82nd Airborne,
right, and
they moved a Marine Expeditionary Unit, an MEU, over from Japan just to reposition forces. The Pentagon is reportedly prepping this final blow plan directly targeting Karg Island.
And Karg Island is huge for them, right?
Massive. It's a highly critical hub for Iranian oil exports. And meanwhile, Trump is out there claiming that 154 Iranian ships have already been destroyed.
Wow.
Yeah, effectively halting their nuclear ambitions. He also made some pretty big headlines recently by calling NATO a paper tiger.
Because of the naval support issue.
Exactly. Because they only offered naval support after the main battles had already been fought.
Right. And, we're just looking at the facts here and the economic reality of all this. And that economic reality is hitting the markets so incredibly hard.
Yeah, it really is.
Brent crude is hovering right near $100 a barrel. WTI is around $90. And the analysts at Macquarie are actively warning that a total closure of the Strait of Hormuz could push oil to $150 a barrel.
Which completely shatters the whole narrative that we've successfully navigated inflation.
Totally shatters it.
I mean, United Airlines is out there right now warning passengers about a potential 20% fare hike just to cover jet fuel.
20%. That's insane.
And Dow Chemical is doubling its price increases on plastics because, petroleum is a primary feedstock for all that manufacturing.
Right. It touches everything.
Yeah. And as a result, the OECD just raised its U.S. inflation forecast to 4.2%.
Okay, I have to push back on this whole soft landing victory lap we've been hearing from economists for the last year.
Oh, for sure.
Because it feels like we successfully soft landed the economic plane, but now we're being charged $150 a barrel just to taxi to the gate.
Yeah. That's exactly it.
Like the actual ground operations are bankrupting us.
They really are. And the Federal Reserve is looking at that 4.2% inflation forecast and realizing they might be backed into a corner here.
Oh, completely.
Instead of cutting rates, this super sticky service and energy inflation could force the Fed to actually hike rates in late 2026.
Wow.
And for anyone paying attention to the tech sector, a rate hike creates a massive discount rate challenge.
Okay, let's unpack that discount rate challenge for a second, because it dictates literally everything happening in Silicon Valley right now.
It really does.
When interest rates go up, the value of a tech company's future profits goes down today. If investors can get a guaranteed, say, 5% return just sitting in cash, they are absolutely not going to throw billions of dollars at a tech startup promising profits 10 years from now.
Nope, not a chance.
The era of free, zero-interest money is officially over. Big tech just can no longer afford to fund these massive vanity projects.
Yeah, and OpenAI is the perfect example of this. I mean, it's a ruthless pivot toward efficiency. They just announced they are completely shutting down the development of Sora, their video generation app.
Wait, shutting it down completely? A year ago, everyone was obsessed with those hyper-realistic AI videos. It felt like the future of Hollywood.
Right, it was everywhere. But OpenAI realizes that compute-like, the actual physical servers and processing power is a finite, incredibly expensive resource.
Ah, that makes sense.
They just can't afford to waste it on generating cool cinematic clips anymore.
So where are they putting all that compute instead?
They are reallocating it toward two highly lucrative areas. First is agentic workflows.
Okay.
So this isn't, a chatbot that writes you a funny poem. This is an AI agent that actually executes tasks, manages software, and does the actual heavy lifting of a human employee.
Oh, wow. That's a huge shift.
Huge. And second, they're focusing on physical AI. They're taking the spatial understanding from the Sora model and turning it into a world model for actual physical robots.
Because a robot that can safely navigate a chaotic factory floor and replace physical labor is worth trillions of dollars to the global economy.
Trillions. It's an immediate return on investment.
And if we look at the underlying hardware making this possible, Google just dropped an absolute bombshell on the industry. They released this new technology called TurboQuant.
Oh, yeah. TurboQuant is wild. It fundamentally alters the economics of running artificial intelligence.
How so?
Well, it compresses the memory needed for these massive AI models down to 1/6 of its original size.
1/6?
Yeah. While simultaneously speeding up the actual inference, the AI's ability to process data and actually give you an answer by 8 times.
Okay, so TurboQuant is basically like suddenly discovering a highly efficient zip file format for the human brain.
That's a really good way to put it.
It's incredible for the brain,
Yeah.
but it is absolutely terrifying for the companies whose entire business model relies on selling the physical filing cabinets.
So it's a nightmare for them. I mean, this breakthrough caused an immediate massive sell-off for memory stocks like Samsung. It even briefly hit NVIDIA.
Really? Even NVIDIA took a hit.
Just briefly, yeah. But it creates this massive advantage for edge AI.
Right, and edge AI just means running the intelligence locally on your device at the edge of the network, rather than sending all that data back and forth to a massive cloud server.
Exactly. And that is why Apple is aggressively rushing to open Siri up to external models like Gemini and Claude.
Because now they actually can.
Right. Because with memory compressed to 1/6, doing heavy AI processing directly on the iPhone itself just became highly viable.
It solves latency issues and those massive privacy concerns in one fell swoop.
Yep. But, NVIDIA isn't just sitting still and watching Google rewrite the rules.
They never do.
They realize the landscape is shifting away from just selling standalone chips to individual companies. So they're pivoting to build entire AI factories.
Oh, utilizing their new Blackwell and Vera Rubin architectures, right.
Spot on. They want to treat compute as a mass-produced token. They're essentially trying to become the utility grid for the 21st century.
That's ambitious. But they aren't the only ones pivoting. ARM Holdings is stepping into the ring as well. Historically, ARM just licensed their chip designs to other companies.
Right, that was their whole thing.
But now, they're pulling off this massive pivot to sell their own AGI CPU directly. They're challenging established legacy giants like Intel and AMD head-on for dominance in the data center.
It's crazy. We are seeing this incredible rush for physical and infrastructural dominance. Like, look at companies that blend software with the physical world, like Tesla.
Oh, yeah.
The narrative has always been about their consumer cars, right? But currently, their semi-truck, which costs between $260,000 and $300,000, is rapidly replacing the Model Y as their primary cash cow.
Which sounds counterintuitive until you run the numbers. Think about a logistics company operating a massive fleet. Fuel is their single biggest variable cost.
Easily.
When Middle East conflicts make diesel prices wildly unpredictable and expensive, the math completely changes. The high upfront cost of a $300,000 electric semi pays for itself so much faster because electricity costs are far more stable.
Yeah, it's a massive total cost of ownership advantage.
It's a brilliant hedge against geopolitical chaos, and Elon Musk is pushing this massive Terafab vertical integration plan to control the entire manufacturing stack for these vehicles, basically removing reliance on vulnerable external supply chains.
And at the exact same time, SpaceX is reportedly eyeing a $75 billion initial public offering.
Wow.
At a mind-boggling valuation of $1.75 trillion.
That is just, I can't even wrap my head around that number.
They're trying to lock in a monopoly premium on space-based internet through Starlink before market conditions tighten any further.
Yeah.
They are securing the ultimate high ground in global communications.
Meanwhile, defense tech companies like Palantir and Anduril are absolutely thriving. I mean, Anduril's Golden Dome anti-missile software is getting huge contracts precisely because of all this geopolitical instability.
Yeah, business is booming for them.
But the domestic foundation here in the U.S. is cracking under the pressure. The financial plumbing is struggling, specifically in the private credit markets.
Yeah, this is a big deal. So over the last decade of super low interest rates, private credit funds expanded rapidly.
And so we're all on the same page. These are non-bank lending institutions, right?
Exactly. They provided massive loans to companies that either couldn't or wouldn't get traditional bank financing. But now, these funds are hitting a massive liquidity wall.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Giants in the space, like Ares Management and Apollo Global Management, are actually enforcing 5% redemption caps on their funds.
Okay, to put that in perspective for our sip-and-talkers, imagine you have your money invested in one of these funds, you see the macro data, you get spooked, and you ask for your money back.
And the fund is literally looking at you and saying, sorry, we can only give you 5% of your money right now.
They are literally locking the gates.
They have to. The core issue is their outsized exposure to the software industry. A lot of these private credit loans were made to software companies whose valuations were entirely based on zero interest rate growth projections.
Ah, so when the rates go up.
Exactly. With inflation staying sticky and the Fed potentially keeping rates high, those valuations are just crumbling. The software companies are struggling to service the high interest debt, and the credit funds cannot liquidate those assets fast enough to pay back their panicked investors.
That is terrifying.
Yeah.
But it isn't just the financial sector freezing up. We have a literal shutdown happening in the government right now.
Yeah, the Department of Homeland Security, the DHS, has been partially shut down for 40 days now.
40 days.
Yeah, the GOP tied the department's funding to domestic immigration reform, which led to this massive political stalemate.
So we have the U.S. projecting immense military power abroad, moving MEUS and airborne divisions to secure global waterways, while our domestic security infrastructure is completely caught in a political deadlock.
It's wild when you put it like that.
Right. Like, we are obsessing over the defense chain in the Middle East, funding golden domes and drone swarms. But the DHS hasn't handed out paychecks to its own people in 40 days. We are aggressively locking the windows while completely ignoring the gaping hole in our own front door.
It creates a massive vulnerability. And speaking of institutional vulnerabilities, the tech sector just got hit with a legal black swan that could honestly rewrite the entire internet.
Oh, the liability case.
Yes. Meta and Alphabet, Google's parent company, were just found legally liable in a landmark social media addiction case.
Which is huge. For years, the legal shield for social media companies was that they are merely platforms hosting third-party content. They just provide the town square.
Exactly. Yeah. Section 230 style defense.
But being found legally liable for addiction strikes at the very heart of their algorithmic business model. These platforms are explicitly designed to maximize engagement, keeping you scrolling as long as possible to serve you ads.
And if the courts dictate that your engagement algorithm is legally classified as an addictive product causing psychological harm, the fundamental cost of doing business just skyrocketed. It forces a complete recalculation of legal risk, potential future earnings, and how these platforms are engineered from the ground up.
So we have the U.S. tangled in Middle East conflicts, domestic government shutdowns, private credit crunches locking up capital, and existential legal threats to big tech.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. How is the other major global superpower reacting to all of this? You would assume China is aggressively taking advantage of the chaos, but they are actually turning incredibly inward.
Yeah, the numbers out of Beijing are really interesting right now. They just set a 2026 GDP growth target of 4.5 to 5%.
Which seems pretty high given what's going on.
It's a highly ambitious target when you look at the structural foundation of their economy. The analysts at UBS are actively warning that China's real estate sector, which historically accounts for roughly a quarter of their entire economy, is projected to shrink by 5 to 10% annually.
Annually.
Continuously, all the way through 2027.
Wow. China is basically watching their economic foundation real estate sink straight into the mud. For the Chinese middle class, where property is the primary vehicle for generational wealth, this is a massive wealth destruction event.
It really is. But instead of panicking, the government is quietly trying to reinforce the walls through their 15th five-year plan. They are doubling down on tech self-sufficiency to drive growth.
Interestingly, they are simultaneously cutting export subsidies on what they call the New Three.
Right. The New Three refers to electric vehicles, lithium batteries, and solar panels.
Because for the last few years, China flooded the global market with these heavily subsidized goods, which caused massive trade friction and tariff threats from the West.
Exactly. By cutting those subsidies now, they're actively trying to cool down those trade tensions. They know they simply cannot afford a massive trade war while their domestic real estate market is imploding.
And we are seeing that softening in their diplomacy, too. Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi just met with Trump. Historically, a meeting strengthening the U.S.-Japan alliance would trigger an intense, fiery backlash from Beijing.
Oh, usually they'd be furious. But look at Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi's recent press conference regarding that meeting. The rhetoric was surprisingly soft.
Very soft.
They are actively seeking limited cooperation to protect their vital export markets. However, we do have to contextualize this.
Right.
Because while they are softening their diplomatic tone, their domestic defense budget still grew by 7%.
So they are essentially patching a massive leak in their own economy with deflation, quietly maintaining a tough posture by growing their military, but suddenly playing nice with Japan and the West because they need international trade flowing to survive the real estate crash.
Spot on. It's a strategic tolerance test. China is testing exactly how much internal economic pain they can endure while quietly shoring up their industrial and military capabilities. They're prioritizing economic survival over ideological grandstanding on the global stage.
It is wild how interconnected every single piece of this is. I mean, think about it. From a U.S.-Iran conflict driving up oil, which forces the Fed to keep rates high, which kills free money, which forces big tech to abandon vanity projects and pivot to highly efficient physical AI, all while China quietly manages a real estate crisis by exporting solar panels.
It's a massive domino effect. The 2026 landscape is basically a massive game of revaluation.
Absolutely.
Whether it's $100 oil squeezing airline tickets, trillion-dollar space monopolies looking for an IPO, or the absolute race to dominate physical AI and robotics. Every asset class on the board is being repriced based on these new physical realities.
And as always, we have to remind all our sip and talkers out there, while we love digging into these trends and unpacking the data, neither of us are investment experts or financial advisors.
Yeah, definitely not.
All the company data, the market caps, and the geopolitical trends we discussed today are strictly for educational purposes only.
Exactly. Our core ethos on this show is to provide you with objective facts, without discrimination or bias toward any nation, political party, or group.
In an era of absolute information overload and algorithmic echo chambers, our strict aim is to empower your own independent critical thinking.
So take the data we've discussed today, question the underlying assumptions, and connect the dots for yourself. We want to make sure you are the most well-informed person in the room.
Before we wrap up, make sure you subscribe to Sip and Talk so you never miss our analysis of the data that actually matters.
And while you are at it, you have to check out our good friend Mickey's YouTube channel. It's called Mickey to Life. He is posting these amazing travel vlogs from Berlin and all around the world.
It is honestly the perfect, refreshing mental break from all this heavy macro analysis. Mickey does incredible work. Definitely go check out his channel.
For sure. But I do want to leave everyone tuning in with a final thought to mull over.
Ooh, all right, lay it on us.
We spent a lot of time today discussing AI pivoting from text-based chat screens to physical robots, right? We're looking at an impending agentic explosion where software will execute the work of thousands of human employees.
Which sounds like a purely digital revolution.
Exactly. It sounds digital. But physical robots require physical materials. They require copper, rare earth metals, lithium, and massive, uninterrupted amounts of electrical energy.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
So as this digital intelligence revolution collides directly with real-world supply chains that, as we just discussed, are currently being disrupted by regional wars, blocked straits, and massive shipping tolls, you have to ask yourself, who will ultimately control the physical resources needed to actually build and power the next $50 trillion industry?
Man, that completely reframes the entire picture. It all comes back to the physical world.
It always does.
Just like this $7 iced Americano I'm holding, we can build all the brilliant AI we want, but we still have to pay the toll to get the beans across the ocean.
Thank you all for joining us today. Stay curious, stay critical, and we will see you next time.